Howdy. My name is Nonat, and today we're going to be doing an interesting video. I've made a video about this in the past about homebrewing magic items for Pathfinder, but today we're going to be talking about homebrewing as a whole. And I would be remiss to talk about this subject without bringing on a YouTube celebrity. It's the Dungeon Coach. It's the Dungeon Coach, ladies and gentlemen. Homebrew YouTuber extraordinaire.
Hey, I'll take it. You said it, not me. So no, but I love me some homebrew, and I am honored for you to take me in on this. I can't wait to talk about all the homebrew goodness.
I am super hyped, and if you guys want more homebrew goodness, we actually just did a video over on his channel talking about stealing some rules from Pathfinder 2e to help amplify and tweak your D&D 5e game.
Heck yeah.
So if that's what you're looking for, there'll be a link right up in the corner to that video right now. In this video, we're going to be talking more about homebrewing as a whole. Obviously, this will apply a little more to D20 systems like Pathfinder or D&D, but hey, stick around. You might learn a thing or two. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a super chill conversation just about homebrewing. So let's start with a super cheesy question of what does homebrewing mean to you?
Oh, like that's very deep and insightful. I love it. I love it already. I mean, honestly, homebrew for me is making the game feel right for you specifically, right? Like I came into tabletop games later in life. My adult brain was going. I wasn't just like trying to play by the rules as like whatever. I was like everything I played, like those moments at the table where something happens and you just feel wrong. Like it feels like not fair, or it feels sorry.
Right? Or clunky, and it feels like the rules are getting in
the way. Yes. So it's just more about feel for me. Like in any time it feels bad, I have a little thing behind my game master screen, not dungeon master screen. It's called a game master screen. Yeah, you taught me that a few seconds ago. But I write down, like I will literally be like, that felt terrible, and I'll write down the situation, just like a mental note of like what that was. And like one of the first things for me in my games were like death saving throws in D&D, and I was like, this feels terrible, I gotta do something about this, and then you start homebrewing to get you the right feel.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you run it the way it's intended and then homebrew it afterwards. Yeah.
Well, I would say when I first started, that's what I was doing, because I was like, okay, I can't just like, because if you don't know what you're doing and you're just making up rules, that's almost not homebrewing. That's just kind of pulling stuff out your butt on the fly.
Well, that's interesting, because that's almost where I was going with this. Because that's actually a lot of my style of GMing. For me, if I don't like the way something's working, or I see it causing problems, I actually won't even run it that way, and I'll tweak it on the fly.
100% I do that now. 100% I do
okay,
that now.
Yeah. I guess, it comes with experience, I suppose. Yeah. My first time GMing, I didn't do that, but...
Because I don't think I had the wherewithal to be like, you know what? This feels bad. Here's what we should do. I was like, okay, I guess this is how it goes. But now it's like, oh, no. We're going to do it this way. Because I've even had now, like, players will have the open book in front of them being like, actually, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, it's cool, but that's not how this is going to work. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. No, I've been very lucky that I've had players who are like, you're the GM. Whatever you say goes. Let's go. And we've always had that respect. Whoever's GMing has the final say.
Props to those players. I 100% agree.
Right. I appreciate them.
Oh, yeah. And I think another thing for homebrew is now, this is not always the case, and a lot of times homebrews do the opposite of this, but it's to make things more intuitive or simple. Like that doesn't make the most sense. It should just be this. Like, why can't we just do this? It's simpler. It makes more sense. It's less clunky, like you said a second ago, to slow the game down. And let's just do it this way. It's over with and move on.
No, I totally agree with that. And I'm sure there's plenty of things in Pathfinder 2e where actually doing the inverse of what we did earlier. I'm sure there are things from 5e I could plug into 2e to make things simpler.
Yeah, I see that.
A big thing is like people dislike staves, however you want to say it, in Pathfinder 2e. They're super complicated. You have to infuse your own spell slots into them to charge specific spells. It's a cool system, but it is complicated. And a lot of people would rather just, like a charge system, 4 charges per day, whatever. And I can't fight that, just to keep the game moving. You don't want to think, I guess I'll sacrifice my 3rd level spell slot to get this many Yeah. So I think.
Well, and I'd also say it depends on your group, like
Exactly.
you're saying, it's like, do you track food rations? Do you track encumbrance?
Ammunition.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the big 3, like, do you track it or not? And so like that's the whole thing that your group and yourself should talk about, and then choose the homebrew to either clean it up or choose the homebrew to make it really grindy and bookkeepy, because that's what y'all all love doing.
Exactly. And that's what I think a lot of people, when they see homebrew, when they see people like you or me talking about homebrew, they get this feeling that we're telling them this is better. This homebrew is better than the base rules, when that's not what we're saying at all.
I love this thing I did. You should try it or not.
Right, exactly. You should try it. We're not saying it's better. And so that brings me to an interesting point, that homebrew can often be looked down upon because it's not official. It's not the way it was designed. If you're changing the game, why are you playing that system,
For sure. Well, I think in general, rules as written for whatever system you're playing is very much like put up on a pedestal. And like, and I will say there's something to it. You do want to honor what came before you. And if you start to just change so many things and add new mechanics that don't make sense to the actual game you're playing, it doesn't feel like on brand for the game you're playing. That can feel bad, but I don't think it should be like, oh, the rules as written. The people that made this game are that what they say goes. They know my game table better than I do. Like, everything we just said about their players and customizing it to your players. Like, my players might not like grindy this or that, or maybe they do. Like, right. The rules is written, and on the first page, I don't know if this is in Pathfinder, but it says recommendation. These are a recommendation. They give you permission.
And I think what people need to, I don't know if they need to realize it or what, but like, the rules as written are written to appeal to as many people as easily as possible.
The masses,
exactly.
Yes.
The average, not common, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So that
as many people as you can.
Exactly.
Millions of people are seeing these books, so you don't want to have extreme math where you're calculating all these things and all this kind of stuff for the masses. Give it shoot the middle of the road. I'm a teacher by trade. That's my job out there in the real world. And whenever I give a lesson, I give it to the neutral down the middle line. If I talk, too many specific examples or too long, it got to go down the middle.
But let me guess, if someone asks a question and needs you to explain it differently, do you oblige?
No, I don't ever. No, I only say the same thing and I stick to the plan. I don't clarify and give customized. I don't customize my teaching towards the students that need different.
But I really think that is a nice little
what a great example
metaphor for
that is
homebrew,
a great metaphor. That was brilliant, dude. Just what you just did there.
Thank you. I'm a genius. I know. I mean, I feel like it can apply to almost anything, especially anything subjective. Is that slight differences, even in the way people play, like an MMO. We talked about MMOs like a tiny bit in your video, but some people prefer grouping up, some people like going solo, some people like a mix, and everyone caters their own experience slightly differently, and there's no right way to play.
Oh, especially in tabletop role-playing games. Like, there's so much room for, and I think that was one of the biggest things that appealed me to tabletop role-playing games compared to any other game that I could play is the customization. I had ideas that I could actually do instead of like, oh, well, the video game didn't script that to be possible. So why limit yourself to a rule book?
Yeah, and that's an interesting place that people argue 5e over 2e in a lot of systems over other systems is, simple is better because you can homebrew anything. Why play a complicated system like Pathfinder with an alchemist when I can just homebrew my own alchemist in 5e? I think my big thing is I get so much inspiration from playing a new system. I never would have in a million years thought of the mutagenist subclass for an alchemist, So even though, I could have thought of a lot of these things, I didn't. And so...
Yeah. Well, and I'd almost say if you have a more complex system, there's more bells and whistles and knobs and levers and scales to slide around and customize. So you have more things to tweak to be able to play with. So I see that as the homebrewer in me is excited with stuff like that. Now, is it more complicated? Sure. But like there's more things to mess with. So that's fun.
Or to steal.
Oh, yes.
And so speaking of steal and speaking of homebrew as a whole, I think it'd be fun to just go over, I guess, our basics of homebrew, our like fundamental do's and don'ts.
Yes.
When approaching homebrew as a whole, whether it be for Pathfinder, D&D, Shadowrun, I don't care. I'm just curious. Yeah. So if we want to start with,
we starting with do's, we starting with don'ts. We doing or don't?
Let's start with do's. Let's start positive. We can end on our negatives. Yeah. Like my number one do, I think, and I see your notes here. Pulling back the curtain, I see your list of notes. I'm gonna steal one because I was gonna say the same thing. Make sure it's fun. We've already said it 50 times this video, but cater it to your table. If don't cater it to yourself as well is a big thing. If you're going to play with a bunch of war gamers, but you have a homebrew that makes combat takes 4 minutes so you can get back to the role play, maybe don't use that homebrew.
Right, which is my second thing is customized, right? Like, so like you want to, and this is kind of all the things we've said, and even my other do is simple. Like it's customized and as easy as possible. Right. Sometimes is the homebrew I'm adding worth the complexity that I'm adding? Because I'm coming from 5e, which is, more simple or whatever. But is the extra complexities I'm adding by adding new rules or new layers to it, is the complexity worth the reward? Like risk reward thing. And overall fun, right? Which ties them all together. So yeah.
Right. And that's going to vary from table to table, which is why some people love 2e as a base system, But let's get interesting, because with all the do's, we've been repeating ourselves ad nauseum. The don'ts is a little more interesting. I mean, there's the obvious one, which is, the opposite of everything we just said. Don't add
rules that are not fun.
Exactly. Don't make it overcomplicated. Don't ruin the game. I guess don't make it your game.
That's a good point. Because if you are putting in homebrews that only you like, and the thing you just changed about the game that they like about the game, you just ruined for them.
Right. And so, my 3.5 GM has actually done an amazing job of this, in that we're doing a very over-the-top campaign. It takes place in the Nine Hells. 2 of the party members are devils. It's been a lot of fun.
I love it.
But like he's taken each of us aside between sessions and is like, so what do you want from your ultimate magic item? He wants to tailor make magic items for each of us. And so he talks to us. He listens to what we want from our character, from our item, and then works with us rather than just making something he thinks we'll like, And
I think that like customizing it to your play, because I have a certain homebrew magic system that I love, but my best friend that I've been playing with it's in all my campaigns, he hates it. So I use it in every campaign that he's not in because I love it. But if he's there, I think it would be a disservice to him. And it's not that I'm, obsessed with it or anything, but he would not feel good, especially if he's playing a caster. Now, if he ever plays a martial class, another don't for me is don't make the homebrews. Now, if we're talking about homebrew, I'm kind of talking about homebrewing spells and subclasses and classes in this thing now, is don't make it too overpowered. I think homebrew gets a bad rap of the homebrewed spells and homebrewed this, homebrewed classes are notorious for this, and homebrew subclasses are like, it's just so strong, power creep, and like it's too strong, and now you've made something that overshadows anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a common beginner's mistake. I've definitely done this in the past, is if you're,
this would be awesome
this would be really cool, but a lot of the times you'll unknowingly, you don't do it on purpose, at least I didn't, you'll want to make a barbarian subclass, and you have these cool ideas, you throw it all together, and you realize you just remade an existing subclass
that's
but better. It does the exact same thing, just way better. And like, it's hard because, Game Masters players, we're not game designers. Homebrewers are not even necessarily game designers, but you want to experiment, and again, it'll depend on your table. Balance is more or less important to different people.
Because I'm gonna say something and then contradict myself and agree with you on that, if that any of that just made sense. Right. But I have, when I first started, I didn't know the full game well enough. Whether we're talking about D&D or Pathfinder, this is, system agnostic right now. I didn't know the full game well enough so that I homebrewed something, and somebody else told me, they're like, dude, you just gave them at 5th level an ability that this class gets at 17th level. And I'm like, well, damn. Oops. Okay, I guess I can't do that, because you have to have the big picture of what's fair and established already, so that you can't just be giving people stuff, out of nowhere that doesn't make sense. But now I'll contradict myself, is I'm never too worried about, like, let's say I have a specific subclass that I made and it's too powerful. Okay. If I would totally let a player play it, they start playing it, and let's say the 3 other players pick normal subclasses that are weaker. Me as the dungeon master, I'm going to give those players extra cool buffs or perks or items or this or that or whatever to balance them out, and everyone's fine now, because I gave them 3 abilities that are custom fit to their characters when they level up or something, or from downtime they learned how to do this cool new thing now, and now everybody's fine. Like, no one's going to worry about this one guy with an overpowered subclass, because they're not going to feel that, because they're going to feel powerful themselves, because I'm going to make sure they feel that way by giving them stuff.
I think that's what's more important over making sure it's perfectly balanced, is making sure nobody feels jealous.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy with their character. Yep. They don't feel like they're just missing
They just
out.
do so much damage. It's like, oh my God, like, why am I even, like, should I even, like, just, yeah.
Right, yeah. Now, I think a creative use, and this is more specifically for D&D and Pathfinder games, a creative use for homebrew can be to fill slots that nobody wanted to play without, needing to rebalance. You want to play a pre-written campaign. Nobody wants to play a healer or a magic user. And that opens the doors for some really cool items. My favorite homebrew item I've ever made, it's the singing sword, which is a one-handed longsword, but whenever you swing it, the sword's blade has specific holes drilled into it, so that as you swing it, it plays a tune that casts Inspire Courage, like a bard.
Okay.
And so as long as you attack with it every turn, it keeps sustained. So, like, don't use this item if someone's already playing a bard.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh my gosh, I could go on a whole rant on that. I hate when, and I'll say I hate when. I'll use the harsh word, okay?
All right, let's go.
Whoa, we're getting spicy now. Here we go. I hate when I say some homebrew for some sort of thing, and I use inspiration from a bard or something, like a homebrew rule in D&D. I'm not going to just go into it, but like you basically use like a help action, like a bardic inspiration, and you add a die to something. And then people come out the woodworks and they're so pissed off because they're like, but that's the bard. The bard gets it. What happens if you have a bard in the group? Well, if there's a bard in the group, I wouldn't do that homebrew, but chances are there's not one. If you think about just odds, right? There's so many different classes that there's most likely not going to be one. So then use it. Why not, take inspiration from other classes, abilities or perks or mechanics, and use them in a base mechanic of the game that, as a homebrew, that you use or not use, if they're there or not.
Yeah, and even along that same line, a spell scroll is just, that's a wizard, But if someone else if someone else uses the scroll to cast Fireball, like,
I have never thought of a spell scroll. Whoa, that's a wizard.
You
Back
can't
off.
use that. No, that's mine. I'm the wizard. I shoot the fireball.
I can't. Nope. You're stepping on the wizard's toes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. But to go back onto something you said about, like, I customize my magic items, my character perks that I give, the NPCs that they encounter, off of what my party's strengths and weaknesses are. If my party doesn't have a healer, there's been so many times in character creation where, maybe people don't understand me as a DM enough yet to know that, like, dude, I'm like, let's just go roll with it. I'm down for anything. And someone's like, we don't have a healer. Somebody needs to be a healer. No, you don't have to have one person be a healer. It's a new challenge that your group's going to have to face. And I'm going to come up with homebrews, whether it's like making potions more available or easier to use, or giving a magic item that they find early on that starts to glow as soon as somebody goes unconscious. And now they can, so like you can give them cool stuff to make them be able to hang with what they want to play.
Exactly. And honestly, you said everything I think about the matter. It's just interesting you mention it, because about 2 weeks ago, I posted a tweet, and it kind of sparked, got like 400, 500 likes and some odd retweets. But like, it wasn't exactly that. It was like a hot take that the party can play whatever they want. The GM should adjust around them. But I got a shocking number of people who are like, the world is the world. If they play without a healer, I'm not pulling any punches. And I'm like, again, if your table's cool with that, that's fine. Yeah. But it's fascinating to me that there is I don't know how much this relates to homebrew, or how much changing the world and catering to your party is considered homebrew.
Right.
But it is interesting how averse some people are to that.
Well, and I see the the spirit of what they're going for. Like, the world is the world, and the world's a living organism, and players are put into it. And but you would be amiss if you did not modify your game to fit your players, regardless of their class. I've had in their ability level, like when they first start playing, if my players don't know how to play their classes, and I have beginner players who are not familiar role playing, they don't understand their class's capabilities, they're still learning how to fight. Like, I can't just punch them in the face. I'm not teaching them. If I'm punching them in the face with encounters and be like, you should have learned your class better, read more books, your character's dead now, read more for your next one. Like, you got to modify it,
Yeah.
And yeah, that is a whole nother, not really homebrew topic, but oh man, I could get fired up about that too, because you got to adjust your players.
Yep. Although the big difference is I always say, twist the campaign to your players, cater the campaign, but don't pull punches.
Oh yeah. And for sure, like, I'll even clarify off of that, is that like, I will let them know, like, hey, there's going to be times where y'all are going to probably get pretty low, and it's going to be pretty scary a lot of times. And I'm going to make sure they feel that. I'm not going to be like, oh, they don't have a healer, so all right, well, I'm going to make sure. No. I'm going to give them encounters that they'll shine in, because they don't have a healer and they're all just do so much damage that they stomp on the thing. But I'll also give them encounters that do the opposite of that and make them wish they had a healer, because they should feel that full spectrum.
I feel like a lot of people don't think to cater specific encounters, specific enemies in dynamic ways, which I can almost think of as homebrew. I had an encounter in a recent campaign where there was a good 150 feet between the players and enemy archers who were on rooftops. So, and there was almost no covers. There were some back alleys they could take, but for the most part, they had to walk in like fighter shield rays just through this volley of arrows. Yeah. The cleric keeping people alive, but everyone had a chance to shine. The fighter got to bulwark. The necromancer summoned a ghoul to take some shots, and it was really cool. And just homebrewing your encounters to not be on a flat plane in a 60-foot arena opens up so many possibilities.
Oh yeah. Yep. We could. Oh man, we could dive in on that. That's a whole. We got to do another video now. We got to do another video about how to.
Are you saying it's a part 2?
I don't know. It depends. See if people like this crossover.
I mean, maybe if we get like 300 likes, I don't know.
Oh.
I think that's actually child's play compared to my normal statistics now. I don't know. I've been out of commission for the last 2 months, basically. I don't know what my average is.
It's all good.
2,000 likes. Okay, so let's move on to some more specifics. Personal strategies when it comes to, just coming up with ideas. A lot of people don't even know where to start. They don't know what to fix or how to fix it. I guess, what's your advice for figuring out what needs to be homebrewed? What should they focus on?
So, I mean, the kind of the first thing of what I like, that feel thing of like those moments when you're like, oh, that felt bad at the table, or it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, or it took forever, or it ruined immersion, or it was a speed bump. Like, all right, how can I come up with a homebrewed initiative system? And I'd say this too, maybe it's not a homebrew. Maybe it's just a rule that you implement at the table. Maybe it's delineating tasks to other people. Maybe there's another solution that's not a homebrew that fixes this problem. But identifying and putting pins in the things that are causing problems or slowdowns or feels bad to start homebrewing and fixing. As far as from a mechanics standpoint is kind of what I do there is like my best example and my favorite homebrew of mine is I don't know how rest works in Pathfinder. Is there like short rest, long rest?
There's no short rest. There's only long rest, but they've added a medicine treat wounds system.
which is kind of like a short rest, I guess.
Sort of, yeah. You
Okay.
roll medicine checks once per hour.
So-
You can heal.
My and so I'm going to be generic. So for the Pathfinder audience here, so I hated long rests in Dungeons and Dragons because you had to like have shifts, and it was like clunky about like who's going to keep watch, and then the other people are recovering, and then you keep and watch, and then like it just ended up being where this one person would keep watch and the other one slept, and they'd like rotate through, and then there's like checks that I guess you feel like you have to make at night to see if anything happens, and then there was no role playing and talking to each other because it's just lone wolves, just night owls watching for something. It just felt dumb. So I was like, this feels dumb. So what I did is, and the same thing you can do for Pathfinder, you can run with this, is I need pairs of watch people. So I need pairs of 2. So I took a long rest, made it 6 hours, cut it in half. You need 3 hours of watch and 3 hours of rest to get a long rest. And now over time you need to have, go sleep in a bed or something. But is the system that I made to solve this problem was, all right, 3 hours you're spending with another person, pick somebody, and now you can talk with them, and you have those nighttime role play sessions between 2 players in a more intimate setting instead of the whole group, so that shy role players can talk to one other person they're keeping watch with and maybe have a conversation, maybe not, maybe, whatever. And if something happens, it's 2 people playing with it instead of just one. And then if nothing happens, they go to bed, and then 2 other people keep watch or whatever, So it added a cool way to keep watch and with people, and it inspired role play, and it was less clunky and strategic even, because like, okay, well, if there's only 3 people, 2 people are together, but then who do we leave by themselves to keep watch? So it fixed everything that felt bad to me.
Yeah, no, I love that system. That's usually how it ends up running in my games. And yeah, when something does happen, especially if they just hear a noise around the corner, it adds some really cool moments. Like every character reacts differently. So when you put these 2 characters together, how do they react together? It's
like the combo of like these 2 people. How do they work together? Because I'll even tell them, and I'm like, if you wake up the rest of the party, they won't get their long rest. So you guys got to try and figure it out. And I give them small little baby encounters of like one wolf or something that they just get to not even have it be a full combat where they roll for initiative, but it's just this cool, fun thing where them 2 get to work together and do something cool together.
Yeah.
Or not. Maybe the initiative is rolled after, and they're the 2 that get screwed over, and they have to yell back, and then now it's a whole thing. So
right,
either way, it's fun.
It can go so many different directions, and I love it. I feel like we went on a
what
tangent there.
Oh no, but you said like how you you're asking me the original question. You said, how do you come up with ideas to homebrew? Like, where do you homebrew things?
Yeah.
Like,
so
yeah.
As far as that's where we actually differ a lot as for homebrewers. Is I feel like you homebrew a lot of rules and such. I'm much more in the subclass and magic items and spells kind of homebrewing. So for me, a lot of it is after a session or mid session, I'll have, man, I sure wish I could do this. It sure would be cool if this existed, and then my strategy to make it come to fruition is finding the closest thing to it, and then twisting it so it's unique. I'm trying to think of any examples off the top of my head.
Well, I'll even chime in on that too while you're thinking about that. Is like, on that note of like home brewing stuff for players, and you referenced this earlier too, is like, I always want my players to know what their goals are. Like, what do I want to be good at? Like, okay, you're a wizard. What spells are you wanting to get better at? Like, if you're playing, and this maybe comes from my coaching background, but like, what things are you training and practicing on to be better at? If you're a fighter, like, what are you in your downtime? Do you want to learn a cool new maneuver or learn how to do that? Like, so I want to try and get their class fantasy of what they're trying to improve in themselves, whether it's in combat, whether it's non-combat, whether it's backstory related. Like, what are you trying to do so that I can put things in front of you, give you cool new abilities, add little tweaks to your spells that you cast. Like, when you cast them now, this cool thing happens because you've been doing this so much.
That is underrated, is not necessarily coming up with new spells, but customizing existing spells to function differently.
For sure.
Like, not meta magic, but like, I was going to say, even if it's just flavor. In one of my first long-form campaigns ever, our DM was super loosey-goosey, and so he could, like, he was, your spell looks and functions however you want it. So our Warlock's Eldritch Blast was scalding hot nacho cheese. That's just how it was. It was a weird campaign, but it was
sounds like it. Sounds like
fun.
it. No, I
We were in college.
but oh well, there you go. That's nacho cheese. There it is. My favorite homebrew. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I already said my favorite homebrew.
You lying to me?
Come
on, man.
My favorite homebrew was the rest thing, because that's my favorite one. But my players' favorite homebrew, all of my players unanimously have decided that this is their favorite homebrew, and you can do the same thing in Pathfinder, is bonus level up perks. Every single time you level up, give them something cool, something that's not in the book. Not like, what does my character get now? What do my feats say? What do I don't even know. Like, give them something cool every single time. And then people come out the woodworks and start raging. There, your character's going to be too strong and they're going to be too powerful. They're going to be, oh my God, they're like power. But again,
then make the campaign harder around them.
Yeah, you can all like you control the monsters. Just beat them. I don't know. But even then, you don't have to do kind of like you just said. It can be flavor. It can be some cool thing that's like non-combat oriented that they can do now. Or it can be combat oriented of a reflavoring of a spell. I don't know if there's a Pathfinder equivalent. The gust cantrip. Is there any type of windy type spell?
Yeah.
Okay. Can it deal damage?
If they crit fail and fall on their butts.
No. Can it deal damage to enemies?
Yeah. If the enemy crit fails, they get pushed back and they fall prone. And take bludgeoning damage.
So this player of mine just really kept using the gust spell, and it doesn't do damage. It just straight up, it doesn't do damage. And I'm like, all right, like they really want to just move people around, right? So then I gave them a level up perk because it makes sense, because that's what they were doing during the process of leveling up. So when they leveled up, they could move a greater feet of distance, and if they moved it into a immovable object, like into a wall or into a tree, they dealt damage to them. So now this player's like, oh, let's go. I have wakened up there. I have homebrewed a mechanic for them of a spell that they love using in their own playstyle and the way that they love to play the game, to now not only they were tactically like trying to position themselves, and like they had their allies like move them in front of the tree and then like shoved them into this. They were doing combos with each other, or wind blowing them off the ledges and stuff, like from a little homebrew tweak that helped them play the game the way they want to do it. So
yeah, no, I'm all about that. I'm all about, letting them play the way they want, first off, and also giving them these unique abnormal effects beyond more damage.
And also, I feel like sometimes people don't think about, like, okay, rule of cool, and all the people that are like, no. How bad does it feel though when everyone's at the table and some player pulls out something that's like, oh, dude, you're gonna blow out the spider's legs and this and this, and the GM's like,
actually, no, it doesn't work like that. You can't do that.
And everyone's like, oh, okay, well, I stab it twice. Okay, well, all right, next turn. Like what kind of game do you want to play? Like, what's your goals here?
All about these momentous occasions. Every campaign should have multiple just moments you'll never forget. Like, I have countless stories. The exploding hand, the half drowning halfling.
But it's because you let it roll with it, and you let these things happen. And if you play it too tight, or you don't homebrew on the fly, then, and I would even say most of those crazy situations, you have to homebrew rules on the fly for like some weird stuff that's going on, or whatever the heck they're trying to pull out. Right. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But all right, so we're pushing 35 minutes. That might be a good place to start wrapping up. But hey, DC, thank you so much for coming on. How about you tell these fine, beautiful people, especially you, looking good, dude. Tell them where they can find you.
YouTube, really. YouTube, The Dungeon Coach. YouTube.com/The Dungeon Coach. I'm working on a website. I'm not that fancy yet. I'm working on it. But yeah, I mean, I do a lot of GM tips that are applicable for
they're
any
GM
game.
Tips. Oh, for any game. Okay.
Yeah, well, they're applicable for, I mean, Dungeon Masters in Pathfinder and Dungeon Masters in D&D. I mean, we encounter so much of the same stuff, you know what I mean, as far as running the game, how to handle stuff. So I'm doing a lot more videos on that, homebrewing in general, and the video me and you just did is taking Pathfinder, all you Pathfinder audience out there, I respect your game so much that I'm stealing your own rules from you, but keeping, I pay respects. We pay our respects, but we take stuff and homebrew things and inspire each other to keep being creative.
That's
yeah.
the big one, is keep inspiring each other, because every time you steal something, it changes a little bit, and then enough people steal that idea that it's changed enough that the original person can steal it again.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
that's so true.
I feel like that's just TTRPGs as a whole. You know, enough people got sick
So
of
true.
D20s, so they made D6 systems and fudge dice systems, and everyone just steals from each other and makes all this cool, unique stuff. So never be afraid.
But like,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, because you got me so hyped up about this because anytime in all of my videos that I say to Homebrew, I don't even want you to use my rule exactly as written. Tweak it. Change. I don't know you. I don't know what your table's like we just talked about in the beginning of this video. I have no idea what you like or don't like, but maybe you hearing the rule I said gives you some spark for Pathfinder or D&D or whatever, and then you take it and run with it yourself. Like, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, I made a full counterspell video when I just listed off a bunch of ideas. I never even said like, this is how you should do it. Like, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. There's so many things. Pick and choose like a buffet what you want to do. So, yeah.
Never
Love
be
it.
afraid to homebrew. Never be afraid to steal an idea. Just make sure you run it by your table first. And players,
For sure.
As a mostly GM, never be afraid to ask your GM, hey, what if this? What if this cool idea I found online? What if this cool idea I thought of? Can you make it work? I feel like 9 times out of 10, your GM will say, let's work with you. You know?
Yeah. Hopefully.
Right?
If
Unless
not,
it's
share a bunch of No Nats videos and get them to watch those and maybe shake them out of the.
Although, unless you're in like Adventurers League, then homebrew gets a little. We don't talk about that.
This has been real fun, man. Thank you
For sure. Thanks
bringing
for
me
coming on. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you. I'm just gonna quickly do a quick shout out to my patrons. They're gonna scroll up right there. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no Nat ones.